Good morning. We'll call Finance here at 8:07. Looks like all present here. Mr. LeGrand is excused. Is there any public comment? We'll jump right in here. Good morning.
Good morning. We'll go right to the budget amendment. Start through working through the couple memos that we have on it. Our fund balance, I'm going to start with general operating. So our fund balance at June 30, 2013 that we started the year with was just over 20 million. In our original budget that we adopted last June, we had planned to use 7.5 million of that fund balance. This amendment increases our use of fund balance by approximately 1.8 million. So there's significant increases in both revenue and expense, so we're going to kind of talk through those this morning. Under general operating, local, we've got, we're projecting a lower amount for the county special ed Act 18 revenue. It's a factor of both the taxable value changes that continue to get affected, and also that's allocated out based on pupil counts. So as we continue to decline and some of the other county or schools in the county are increasing, that's kind of a factor on both sides there. We've included the budget for the sale of the 2 buildings that you've just approved. And we also, as last summer, as we were moving things around, we were able to sell some equipment that we haven't used in years. So if you added the 2 amounts for the building sales, it's just a little bit more. So the next big item there, the 1.2 million in Universal Service Fund funding for technology. For those of you that were here a couple years ago, we used to annually we submit applications for funding through the USF funding. It's a very tedious, nitpicky process, and our applications have gotten held up for a couple years. So as we've done the budgets for the last couple years, we just haven't included anything because we've been working through that appeals process, and all of a sudden this fall they started approving all of our appeals. So that's where all of a sudden we've gotten checks in for 1.2 million. Craig and his group have been working on now going ahead and processing all of that equipment and technology that we've been planning on purchasing and getting our infrastructure in place. So next round on that is those applications, you have to specify specifically what equipment you're going to buy, and some of that equipment is no longer available. So when it takes 2 years to process, and so now that's the next part, but they're working through that, and he's very anxious to get going on that. No technology is a concern for the district, so trying to get at least the infrastructure more up to date. So
Are there additional applications still out there? Or guys
we do it annually, so yeah, it's an ongoing process to annually. So hopefully, whatever was holding them up is at least starting to break the logjam, so that we can stay current in processing the things through. The thing with that is yes, it's a nice chunk of revenue coming in, but there's also the expenses on there too. So moving to on the grants on the local side, we're recognizing some revenue for the next year of the education evaluation program, and a donation for the through the SAF for the Lincoln Playground. Under state sources, we've projecting an increase in general ed enrollment and a decrease in special ed enrollment. So those are the adjustments there on the state revenue. Just a reminder there, our funding this year is based on 90% of the October count and 10% of our February 2014 count. So rather than basing our membership revenue on calendar year counts, they've changed it to school year counts. So right now we're going through the audit of the fall count, so we don't have a final number there. We won't have the February audit done until sometime probably June. So we won't know what our revenue is for this year until after the school year's done. It will be interesting. The other impact this year is the first year of full implementation of Section 25 for children that change districts between the count days. So the state has started processing those as the ISD auditors process those and enter those in the system. That is actually affecting our, as they enter it, the state then uses that as when they do our state aid every month. So at this point, for the adjustments that they have processed so far, we have lost more students than we have gained in that time period, but that's still an ongoing work in process. Also for that, even after they process something, there is an appeal process. So again, that's another factor that's going to kind of leave in not knowing for sure what our membership revenue is going to be until very late in the year.
Does the audits usually come out very close to what our estimates are?
Typically, you know, in the scheme of 17,000 students, you know, it's going to be a few students here or there.
And it is the IST that does the auditing?
Yes.
Or- Okay.
The next two items there are related to MIPSers categoricals. There are two. Both are calculated, and it's kind of a strange calculation, based on our percentage of salaries reported to MIPSers versus the statewide salaries. So again, it's another one that's hard to really predict what our salaries are compared to the statewide. So when we did our original budget, we were a little conservative on that. So the 147A just helps to offset our retirement costs, and so we're projected to receive about 1.5 million. So just a little increase from what we had originally budgeted on that. The Section 147C categorical is for the UAAL rate stabilization. And for that revenue received, we receive an equal and offsetting invoice from MIPSers. So the state is helping to buy down the rate, but they want to pass the revenue and say they gave it to us, but within a couple days of getting state aid, we've got an invoice that we have to pay into MIPSers. So that's, again, where we were conservative, but we're also going to see the increase on the expense side. So it looks like more revenue, but there's a bill that comes with that one. And we receive approximately $5.7 million in that. So it helps stabilize the retirement system, which is good. Under the grants for the state, we're adjusting 31A and the 22I technology grants and other state grants for final awards, carryover, and then we are also starting to look at, are we going to spend the entire award of money available this year? And if we don't think we're going to spend it all and have some to carry over for next year, we're starting to adjust. So these balances should be closer to what you'll actually see that we spend for this year. Under the grants, we're also doing that for the Title I, Title II, Title III for federal final awards, the carryover and the projected expenditures. You may notice on there that we're adjusting ARASIG and say that was done. We did have some expenditures that occurred from July 1 through September 30 when the grant ended, so that was recording those. Moving to the expense side, we're adjusting our salary and benefits like we normally do on this first big amendment for projected costs, with including benefits in there. So that includes some of the MIPSers items that we've just talked about. The staff, remember in August, the superintendent had asked to be able to add staff at the beginning of the year, so I think had approved to add 24 staff between what we added before school started, and then, as you know, every fall, as we get enrollment in, we always look to see, do we have the teachers in the right place? And, you know, we don't want class sizes in a kindergarten of 35. So we kind of do some tweaking in those first few weeks of school to adjust teachers for enrollment there. So that's the big part, is adjusting staff at the beginning of the year. We also have included some transformation costs. We knew as we went into this over the summer, we had a lot of staff that were really busy, and moving stuff around. And you'll see that both under instruction. We did buy some new furniture, equipment in some places. We also had some startup type things for expanding North Park Montessori and for stocking, to get stocking reopened with some basic supplies to start the year. Under support, again, we're adjusting salary and benefit costs. That includes some of the overtime that our staff had over the summer for the transformation. It also, when we did the original budget, we had included some of the savings for custodial, factored that into a salary reduction, but actually we're contractually required to reduce the contracted services before we do salary. So that's where on the next line you'll see a reduction in contract services, but an increase in salary. So we're just getting that lined up the way we need to. And let's see, as the next line, which you probably can all relate to, is with the severe cold that we've had this year, our natural gas bill is significantly higher. So we're putting almost 800,000 in between natural gas. A little bit of that is electricity and a little bit is water, but we had budgeted for a normal winter, which this has not been. So moving on down, we've got some more of the transformation costs for all of the moves and all of the work that the maintenance and operations staff and technology staff did this summer. Another item that's we're including the budget for is our operations staff has, and Ken may be able to help me, we call it Maximo, but it's our software.
It's our software system for work orders. So when a building has a need, the office can enter it in the computer system, and then it gets to our maintenance staff for repair. And it also allows us to track not only when it was found and requested, but how quickly, the time frame to get it completed and the cost to get it completed. That system is over 10 years old and is no longer serviceable. So we're looking at a replacement software.
So we need to get back to fully functioning with that software. So we're going to go ahead. Ken and his group and technology group have been looking at what our options are, and we'll be bringing that one forward. We've also brought on the consultant for the budgeting for the consultant for the OCR compliance review that we're ongoing right now. We're looking at our special ed transportation costs, and those are actually down significantly through the ISD and working through efficiencies. So we're reducing that budget, and we'll continue to watch it to make sure that we're still there and covering what we need to. Under the other, those are primarily related to our general operating transfers to center programs and athletics, and our indirect charges out of grants and food service back into the general fund. So that's.
Can you speak to the grant-related adjustments under support services? That's a pretty significant number to say other.
Okay, yeah, it's typically as the revenue up above, as comes in, then we go through and look at there. So they're also seeing the MIPSers adjustment come through there. And as we brought in all of that revenue for Title I and adjusting there, those are the expenses that are coming through there.
Any questions about
General operating?
I did have one about the, we had approved the staff increase of the 24. Was that adequate? We were talking about.
Yeah, but actually, as I was going through and looking at the final numbers between what we put in the summer and what we did this fall, it came out to right at 24, I think, so.
And that was with staff resigning as well.
Right, and so actually, some of those that we were putting in August, as the staff resigned, we were just able to have teachers there actually to fill those positions, so.
And do we have that number of the total
That I'm not sure, the
Forward
ones, the
planning.
last minute resignations. that I'm-
Summer. Okay, great, thank you.
Any additional questions about the Budget Amendment 1? Is there a motion to approve the resolution to adopt Budget Amendment 1?
Motion to approve.
Support?
All right, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? Motion carries.
I just want to clarify, was that for both general operating
No,
and special revenue?
No,
Just general operating,
there's
yeah,
two- there's
okay,
two
that's what I
resolutions
just. Under special revenue, again, we have taken time and gone through that. The biggest piece of that is our center programs. So again, one of the things we do with the MIPSR's revenue that comes in is give that credit into the center programs too. It's based on our salaries. They have salaries that are included in that. So that's the increase under the state foundation for revenue is related to that MIPSR's adjustment there. And there are also the Act 18 revenue, we're reducing it in center programs also. And with this being a zero balance fund, the tuition's going up and our transfer's going up as well to cover the increased costs down below, including the MIPSR's adjustment and some salary adjustments for staff adjustments we've had to do. Under the other, that includes our food service fund and Hausman Field, and at this point, most of those adjustments are through food service and adjusting for food costs. And we've also continue to work with the non-publics and other school districts to provide food service for their programs too. So we've got an adjustment for the federal revenue as we continue to see project out between the number of meals that are going to be served. And so that's an increase on the revenue side. Kind of jumped around on that one, sorry. But any questions on special revenue?
Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the resolution for the adoption of the Budget Amendment 1 for special revenue?
So moved?
Support.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? Motion carries. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Sure you're
It
glad to be
was-
done.
It was a process this time, so I appreciate your patience, and I know this is later than you normally get it, so. Next up is our purchasing agenda, if that's okay to move there. We do have some people here to help answer questions if you've got any. We've got the purchase of copy machines for Union and Central. Doing some enrollment forecasting and student addresses. I know, as the board, you've asked to do, that's one of our things that's out there, is where are we headed with enrollment? We continue to lose students. What can we do? Where do we need to look? And so working with that, I know that has been a concern of Mr. LeGrand, and so he's been working with Superintendent Neal. So that's the next couple items, is to try to do some work with some forecasting on enrollment. Under stock inventory, then, we've got a paper order out there for the district. We're also looking at preschool playground for the Ford Academic Center, drainage improvements for Lincoln campus, and the walking exercise track at MLK. And asbestos,
This is consulting services for asbestos abatement at Ottawa. There's a large project in the South House. This would be the consulting services to identify, put the bidding documents together, and do all the monitoring and testing for removal.
so if
Any
you've got
question?
questions on that, we do have some staff here that can help with some of these other items too.
Any questions concerning any of the items contained on the purchasing agenda?
I feel like I should have some since you're all here. Let me come up with some.
If that's okay too.
All right. No questions? Is there a motion to approve the purchasing agenda?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Any questions? Those in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Moving down to reports, we've got the January financial statements. We're running about where we expect to be. As you'll note, though, on our comments, there's some things that we needed to start to get lined up with Amendment 1. So as you see our February statements, our budget will start to align better with our actual costs. But nothing at this point that is of concern. So if you've got questions, we can try to answer those. If not,
Any questions concerning the financial statements?
I do have a retroactive question. The utility expenses were through January or?
it's what we're projecting through the end of the year.
Through the end of the year?
Yeah.
Okay.
And hopefully we have a warm-up.
All right.
Okay. And the next is warm, safe, and dry.
The Warm, Safe, and Dry report is smaller. We've been closing out projects from last year. The two remaining, and this, I found one more spot that Creston didn't get converted to city yet, so we'll take care of that. But the energy work at city and the masonry at Central will be ongoing, and there actually be additional phases that will come up under next year's budget. And then, just as an update for the 14-15 Warm, Safe, and Dry year, we are looking at over 60 projects. And that includes combining things like new doors at a dozen schools as one. So we're trying to identify, get things rolling. So this list will start expanding. The May timeframe for summer work should be very busy. You can expect to see a large amount of projects coming for approval in May.
No rest for the weary.
Rest for the weary.
At least it's been an easy winter.
We're thankful for small things.
Is there any questions concerning anything on the Warm, Safe, Dry update? No? All right. That is the end of the agenda as written. Is there any other questions, concerns, anything anyone wants to bring up?
I think page 4 of our agenda and the secretaries, do we have to do anything in regard to this amendment to general?
No, that was the resolution.
Those
That
are
was
resolutions.
just the
Yep, so
resolution.
those are-
Okay,
those are going to the
okay.
full board for-
I was confused that it had the secretary and not as the treasurer.
Yeah, because it
That goes
actually,
to the full
yeah,
board.
we're just adopting.
And then it gets in the
Full board.
consent agenda.
Yeah. All right. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all for your time.
I thought it was gonna